There was a wizard named Saruman the White who lived in Middle-earth during the Third Age. He comes to Grey Havens with a wealth of knowledge, in addition to his magical abilities. He was, as it were, a beacon of light amidst all the darkness Sauron had dispersed. The surprise, though, is that Saruman wasn't the hero we had imagined. No, he was rather the greatest traitor. But what happened that made this sage wizard a sinister villain? For what reason did he turn against the light? And for what length of time was he plotting in secret with the enemy? We are going to answer all these questions in today's video, so stay with us till the end and let's begin. Let's go back to the beginning of all this. There was more to Saruman than meets the eye. He was one of these ancient, cosmic, spirit-like people known as the Ainur. Some of these Ainur chose to settle in the world of Arda at the time of the universe's creation. The powerful ones, known as Valar, and the weaker ones, known as Maiar, divided into two teams. Though the Maiar were not as strong as the Valar, they were still incredibly powerful in their own right. Though not as strong as the Valar, Saruman was nonetheless a rather formidable Maiar. Kirumo was Saruman's original name. While he wasn't as mighty as the Valar, he was still a formidable being. Back in the time, while he was still known as Myron, he worked for a Vala by the name of Ald the Smith, with his fellow Maya, Sauron. Before now, these two most likely had a good working relationship. They had a similar passion for creating order out of chaos, and were both intelligent and driven. However, this relationship didn't last for long. Sauron seems to possess a unique ability to comprehend Saruman. They were similar to two peas in a pod, yet one quickly became a Dark Lord while the other took his time. For eons, Saruman served the Valar as their devoted attendant. He was so proficient in his work that he was the first person chosen to become a wizard, and traveled to Middle-earth when it came time to make that decision. The Valar, the supreme being, said, "We need strong people to go settle things in Middle-earth, but they have to leave their cosmic abilities at home and become part of the community." Alatar, sent by Orome and Kirumo, chosen by Ale, were the only two Maiar to step up. Then again, there is this one scene where they ask Olorin, who goes on to become Gandalf, whether he is game. And he is saying, "No, I'm not strong enough, and I get scared of Sauron." However, Olorin eventually gives in to the boss's insistence. Kirumo feels a little envious of this whole situation. It irritates him to see Olorin receiving so much trust and attention from the powerful people. Kirumo's the first wizard to come to Middle-earth, and the wise elf Círdan greets him while he's holding one of those potent elven rings. Círdan chooses to give the ring to Olorin instead of Kirumo, even though it is Kirumo that's the official leader of the wizard crew. This honorable guy with a fair speech and amazing crafting abilities is characterized as the first wizard to appear. He's regarded as the group's top dog by all, even the elves. However, they are unaware that this scenario is not as simple as it seems. Kirumo and Olorin were not the only wizards among them. One wore earthy brown, the other two were clad in marine blue, and the last one was a little shorter, appeared older with gray hair, and rested on a staff. But Círdan, as shrewd as ever, trusted him with the third ring, Naraya the Red, seeing something remarkable in him right away. People gave them new names as they wandered over Middle-earth. Olorin was dubbed Gandalf the Grey, while Kirumo was dubbed Saruman the White. They were joined by two blue wizards and Radagast the Brown, three more Maiar. Gandalf and Radagast stayed to the west, while Saruman and the Blue Wizards traveled for centuries towards the east. To defeat Sauron, Saruman delves deeply into his sinister past during this period. However, as he gained more knowledge, he began to regard Sauron as a competitor, rather than just a villain that needed to be vanquished. It appears as though he became tempted to emulate Sauron after gazing at his shadow for an extended period and seeing a reflection of himself. Saruman began to follow Sauron's path because of his intense desire for power. At a time when unrest was building in Mirkwood, in 2463 of the Third Age, he returned from a trip to the Far East. Guess who wanted to be in charge when the White Council was established to address this increasing threat? Indeed, Saruman. Saruman took the top position, nevertheless, only after Gandalf declined it as a sign of respect for Galadriel's favor. It was Gandalf, who was never one to miss an opportunity, who sensed that something fishy was happening in Mirkwood. He even ventured to Dol Guldur to investigate, frightening away the sorcerer who had been hiding there for some time. However, darkness returned with greater vigor, which prompted the establishment of the White Council. Gandalf and Saruman were among its important members, along with Elrond, Galadriel, Círdan, and other notable figures. Saruman was having none of Galadriel's hopes that Gandalf would take the helm of the council. His conceit and need to be in command had become too great. As befitted his character, Gandalf declined the position, preferring to have no responsibilities aside from those who had sent him. And once more, Saruman's mounting hatred was only heightened by Gandalf's preferential treatment of the elves. In the Third Age, Saruman set out a fresh adventure in the year 2759. He set off for Rohan in the hopes of obtaining the keys to Isengard, an ancient stronghold that had been occupied for 50 years by hostile Dunland residents. Saruman entered Orthanc, the Tower of Isengard, receiving nods of approval from the King of Rohan and the Steward of Gondor. He initially behaved civilly, watching over the tower and serving as the steward's sort of deputy. Frialaf, the King of Rohan, was glad to have such a powerful friend. At first, Saruman appeared to be a genuine buddy, but others soon began to believe he was up to something. They surmised that he traveled to Isengard in an attempt to increase his strength and locate the stone, a potent relic. Saruman found various old riches in the Tower of Orthanc, among them one of the remaining Palantiri, those ethereal seeing stones. About 90 years later, Gandalf ventured into the dark recesses of Dol Guldur by himself. He could sense the Dark Lord's presence there, even in the darkness. Sauron had returned, just as he had feared. The White Council received dire news from Gandalf, who urged him to launch an immediate assault on the fortress. However, Saruman's tactful speech dissuaded others from picking up guns like magic. This encounter suggests that Gandalf is beginning to suspect Saruman as being disloyal. According to unfinished tales, Gandalf already doubted that Saruman intended to keep the One Ring for himself. But Gandalf didn't fully understand the depth of Saruman's betrayal until much later when he was imprisoned in Orthanc. Although it appears that Saruman's hesitation to take on Dol Guldur was due to his continued allegiance to Sauron, the reality is more sinister. As it was revealed in the Silmarillion, Saruman had already begun to harbor darker ideas and yearn for his own ring. He thought that the ring would seek for its master, and he desired to be that master to have complete control. So dancing perilously close to the fires, Saruman let Sauron stay for a while in the hopes of outwitting both his comrades and his adversary when the ring eventually appeared. Beneath his exterior, he harbored a secret desire to not just submit to Sauron's evil, but also to orchestrate his masterwork of dominance and control. When his operatives attacked the region for the One Ring, they found that Sauron's henchmen were also prowling the Anduin River. In 2941, Saruman grudgingly consented to attack the Dark Lord's stronghold in an attempt to thwart his search efforts, fearing Sauron's impending success. Sauron fled Dol Guldur and took refuge in Mordor, where he reclaimed his throne in the menacing castle of Barad-dûr. He kept the Ithil stone there, which gave him the ability to speak with Saruman in Orthanc and Denethor in Minas Tirith. A full 12 years later, the White Council met again. During this period, Saruman's evil plans for Rohan are revealed by Tolkien, who also illuminates his work's motives. Gaining allies among people who had animosity for Gondor and Rohan, he strengthened Isengard. Establishing connections with the Dunlendings and calling forth orc tribes from the north, he laid the foundation for his sinister plans. He quietly gathered his own army, bringing darkness to Rohan's boundaries and sowing discontent and terror. By 2990, Saruman had started an evil breeding program in Isengard, which caused his decline into darkness to worsen even further. He produced beings who could withstand daylight, known as Uruk-hai and half-orcs, using techniques he had learned from Sauron or from his own research. This breeding scheme was startlingly effective, despite its morally abhorrent nature. Eomer's description of the fight from the east wall against the Orc coast amply demonstrates the danger these fresh Isengard orcs posed. They had suffered severe losses, both soldiers and horses, and were up against a far larger enemy than they had predicted. Saruman presents a terrifying image of a once wise wizard devoured by his ambition and darkness, thanks to his decline into depravity and his unrelenting quest for power. With the white hand of Isengard on their heads, the orcs emerged from the forest in the east, proving that Saruman's evil breeding scheme had created a brand new, terrifying breed. The Uruk-hai, as these orcs were called, were more powerful and terrifying than any that had ever been seen. Unsettlingly, Saruman's wicked hand furnished them with sustenance, human flesh. In contrast to what the Peter Jackson films have taught us, Saruman's corruption was not the result of his interaction with Sauron via the Palantir. The appendices of Tolkien's books provide the truth. Saruman did not go to see the Palantir of Orthanc until the year 3000. That terrible year, Sauron's pernicious power started to round his soul, binding their destiny together in an unbreakable dance. And then 18 years after Saruman had peered into the Palantir for the first time, in 3018, Gandalf answered his call. When Gandalf arrived in Orthanc, Saruman was wearing a ring as a sign of his imitation. Declaring himself the Saruman Ringmaker, Saruman of many colors, Saruman alluded to his conceit and ambition to challenge Sauron's dominance. When Saruman put on a ring of his own and dared to refer to himself as Ringmaker, a menacing echo of the Dark Lord's own title, his plunge into darkness reached its lowest point. His ring might not have been as powerful as those with actual power, but it probably included some magic that enhanced the wearer's innate powers. However, it also heightened more sinister tendencies, such as jealousy and a need for dominance, drawing Saruman farther into the depths of evil. A ray of hope emerged with Gandalf's rescue by Gwaihir, the Lord of the Great Eagles, after he had been trapped atop Orthanc for more than 2 months. But Saruman, caught up in his trickery, could only see what was about to happen. His actual nature threatened to be revealed, provoking Sauron's fury. Seeing no way out, Saruman walled up Isengard and turned it into a shadowy mirror of Mordor, his haven of darkness. Saruman continued to communicate with Sauron via the Palantir, hoping to gain forgiveness from the Dark Lord by displaying his allegiance on Rohan's wall. And so, Isengard's war against Rohan started, bringing destruction in its path and bringing Saruman closer to the dark side. Envy and ambition that sowed their seeds in the early days of Arda caused Saruman's downfall, which was gradual rather than sudden. The source of his corruption was not Sauron or the Palantir, but rather his own ambition for power. Once studied items, the rings of power turned into an obsession that engulfed his heart in darkness. However, we know very little about Rohan yet, right? Well, here's a sneak peek. In the First Age, a group of people called the Atatanatari traveled through the Middle Lands, heading west. Some of them decided to settle along the way, but those who kept going west became known as the Edain. These Edain teamed up with the elves to fight the evil Morgoth. As a reward, the Valar, the powerful beings, gave them long lives and a special island called Numenor after a big war destroyed Beleriand. The Númenóreans thrived on their island for many years, but then they were influenced by the Dark Lord Sauron and decided to sail west to fight the Valar. This ended badly, leading to the destruction of their island and the loss of most of their people. Only a few remained loyal to Eru Ilúvatar, the highest deity, and didn't join the fight against the Valar. These faithful ones became known as the Dunedain and founded the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor in the Third Age. Meanwhile, their relatives who stayed east of the Blue Mountains during the First Age didn't get involved in the wars of the West. They had shorter lifespans and were called the Middlemen, or Men of Twilight, by the Númenóreans in the Second Age. The Númenóreans and most Middlemen got along well, trading and maintaining friendly relations. However, the men of Edenwaith and Menhiraeth in southern Eredor were hostile and warlike. These people, related to the House of Haleth, spoke a different language and were not considered kin by the Númenóreans, leading to conflicts that lasted for thousands of years. In the Third Age, Middlemen and Northern Rovanian, known as the Northmen or Freemen of the North, established settlements, including the powerful Kingdom of Rovanian. They continued their tradition of friendship and alliance with Gondor, fighting together against the constant threat of the Easterlings from Rhuan. After a major victory in 1248 of the Third Age, they pushed the Easterlings back beyond the Sea of Rhûn, with Gondor and Rovanian agreeing to draw the border at the Anduin River, giving all eastern lands to the Kingdom of Rovanian. Centuries later, a devastating plague hit the North, and the Easterlings, united as the Wayne Raiders, returned. They waged a terrible war against Rohan, destroying the kingdom and enslaving its people. Eventually, with Gondor's help, the Northmen rebelled and pushed the Easterlings back, but their kingdom was gone, and their population had been drastically reduced. Some Northmen survivors moved to Dale and Laketown, while others, led by Marwini, settled in the Vales of Anduin between the Gladden Fields and Mirkwood. This group became known as the Eotheod, or Horse People, famous for their mounted warriors. Years later, after the fall of Angmar and the defeat of the Witch King, chieftain Frumgar of the Eotheod moved his people north to the lands near the Grey Mountains. They founded their capital, Framsburg, named after Frumgar's legendary son Fram. Fram became famous for killing the dragon Skaitha, who had been a menace in the Grey Mountains. Fram claimed Skaitha's treasure, which unfortunately caused a rift with the dwarves. The dwarves wanted their stolen possessions back, but Fram sent them only a necklace made from Skaitha's teeth and a letter they found insulting. This led to centuries of hostility between the dwarves and the Eotheod. Generations later, Earl, the son of Leod, became the leader of the Eotheod. During his reign, a messenger from Gondor representing Sauron, the steward of Gondor, arrived with the Red Arrow, a symbol calling for urgent aid against eastern invaders. Earl understood that if Gondor fell, the entire West would be in danger. So he led his army south to defend the plains of Calanortion, a large and sparsely populated area within Gondor's realm. South of the Misty Mountains, the lands were under attack by a group of Easterlings known as the Balchoth. They nearly defeated Gondor's armies until Earl the Young and his Eotheod warriors arrived just in time. They beat back the invaders and scattered their forces at the battle on the field of Celebrant. To thank Earl and his people for their help, Sauron, the steward of Gondor, gave them the territory of Calanorton. This allowed the Eotheod to move south and settle into these fertile lands. Grateful for this generous gift, Earl pledged eternal friendship and alliance with Gondor. He vowed to come to their aid whenever needed, and Sauron did the same. They established an important alliance, using the Red Arrow as a signal to call the Rohirrim to Gondor's defense. Gondor renamed these lands Rohan, and the people became known as the Rohirrim. Earl's descendants and the Eotheod called themselves the Urlingas of the Riddermark. The people of Rohan spoke Rohirric, a language similar to Aduniac, the language of Idan. Interestingly, the hobbits of the Shire also shared some language similarities with Rohirric. This was because they once lived near the Anduin, close to the ancestors of the Rohirrim, influencing each other's cultures and languages. Even the term hobbit comes from the Rohirric word holbitia, meaning hole builder. Within Rohan's borders, several important areas emerged. Their capital was Edoras, with the city of Edberg also holding significance. Key locations included the Gap of Rohan, separating the Misty Mountains from the White Mountains, the refuge of Dunharrow, the fortress of the Hornburg, and the larger area of Helm's Deep in the White Mountains. King Earl ruled the new kingdom of Rohan for 35 years until he died in battle, once again defending the land from the Easterlings. The throne was then passed to Earl's son Brego, who is best known for establishing Edoras as the capital and building the Golden Hall of Meduseld as the royal hall. Brego was succeeded by his second son Aldor, after his eldest son Baldur was lost traveling the paths of the dead. Aldor lived a long life, and his reign was considered a golden age. During this time, they expanded their lands and established Dunharrow as a refuge. Aldor's rule also saw a significant campaign against the wild men of Dunland, who were gradually driven from the hills and valleys as the Rohirrim settled in. This effort reached a major milestone during Aldor's time, with the Dunlandings being chased across the Gap of Rohan. While the Rohirrim expanded and prospered, the wild men, bitter over the loss of their lands, became the fiercest enemies, raiding Rohan whenever they could. After Aldor, the throne passed to his son Freya, then to Freya wine, gold wine, and eventually to J.R.R, the 7th king of Rohan. During J.R.R's reign, the subdued Dunlendings rose again, invading the northern lands of Rohan. J.R.R led an army to repel them, but discovered that the Dunlendings had taken Isengard, an impregnable fortress that the Rohirrim couldn't defeat. This forced Rohan to live with the constant threat of raids and attacks from the Dunlendings. J.R.R's son and heir Gram spent all 23 years of his reign at war with the Wild Men. Gram's son, Helm Hammerhand, became the 9th king of Rohan and also faced continuous conflict with the Dunlendings. One of the enemy leaders was Fricka, a man who claimed descent from King Freyawine, making him of both Dunlending and Rohirrim lineage. Freyka, confident in his power, brought a large army to Edoras to propose a marriage alliance between his son Wulf and Helm's daughter, hoping to intimidate King Helm. King Helm of Rohan saw through Freyka's marriage proposal as a ploy for the Dunlendings to gain power. He refused the offer, leading to a heated argument that ended with Helm killing Freyka with a single powerful blow. Helm then declared Freyka's son Wulf and his people enemies of Rohan. 4 years later, Helm led an army to confront them in the north. Wulf was prepared and marched his army out of Isengard, defeating King Helm in battle. The Wild Men then invaded Rohan in full force, killing Helm's son, Haleth, as he defended the capital of Edoras. The rest of the Rohirrim fled west to the Hornburg. Unfortunately, Rohan's allies in Gondor were unable to assist because they were fighting their own war against the Corsairs of Umbar. The Dunlendings overran Rohan, besieging the Hornburg to starve out the Rohirrim. Wulf took the throne of Rohan, ruling during a harsh period known as the Long Winter. During this time, King Helm Hammerhand grew gaunt and grim as his people suffered under the siege. From the fortress that would later be called Helm's Deep in his honor, Helm couldn't stand to see his people slowly exterminated. He began a one-man stealth campaign, sneaking out of the fortress at night to kill Dunlending warriors with his bare hands. To add to the terror he inflicted on his enemies, Helm would sound a deep and ominous horn from inside the fortress before venturing out for his nightly killings, warning the Dunlendings that death was near. However, Helm couldn't continue his deadly work forever, and one night he froze to death outside the fortress. When winter ended and spring arrived, Helm's nephew, Freyolf Hildison, led a small army from Dunharrow, reclaimed Edoras, and killed Wulf, becoming the 10th king of Rohan. With Gondor having defeated the Corsair threat, they could now aid the Rohirrim in driving back the Dunlendings and retaking Isengard. Isengard was then granted to Saruman the White, a powerful wizard and a great ally of the kingdoms of men. Freyolf was succeeded by his son Brita, who restored Rohan's prosperity. However, during his reign, orcs from the Misty Mountains began migrating south after suffering heavy losses in the wars of the dwarves and orcs. The Rohirrim started a campaign to drive these creatures from their lands, which continued during the reign of Brita's son Walda. Walda ruled for 9 years before being killed in an orc attack. His son Folka then took the throne and destroyed every last orc stronghold in Rohan. Folka died during a hunt for the great boar of Firion Wood and was succeeded by his son Folkwine. Folkwine ruled for many years, dealing with the Dunlending encroachments and sending his sons, Folkred and Fastred, to aid southern Gondor against the Haradrim. Both sons were killed in the fighting, and in honor of their sacrifice, Gondor's steward, Turin II, paid a rich weregild to the king of Rohan. Folkwine's third son, Fingal, then inherited the throne, followed by his son, Thingol. Under King Thingol's rule, Captain Thorongil, who was later revealed to be Aragorn's son of Arathorn, served both Rohan and Gondor, earning a great reputation for his defense of both realms. After Thingol's death, his son Theoden became king. Theoden was wise, kind-hearted, and valiant in battle. However, by 3014, his court had been infiltrated by Grima Wormtongue, a servant of Saruman. Grima used spells and witchcraft to manipulate the king, issuing orders that benefited Saruman's plans. Saruman temporarily allied with the Dark Lord Sauron, hoping to capture the One Ring of Power for himself. Saruman, driven by his ambitions and alliances with the Dunlendings, sent Orc and Uruk-hai armies to invade Rohan. He also manipulated King Theoden through Grima Wormtongue, causing chaos within the realm. Theoden's son, Theodred, and nephew, Eomer, tried to defend Rohan as the War of the Ring intensified. However, Grima's influence hindered their efforts. After Theodred died in the first battle of the Fords of Isen, Rohan suffered further setbacks. Matters worsened when Grima orchestrated Eomer's arrest. Meanwhile, Gandalf worked tirelessly to unite the free people against Sauron. When he arrived in Edoras, he discovered Theoden under Grima's spell. Gandalf broke the enchantment, freeing Eomer and banishing Grima from the realm. Theoden then led his forces against Saruman in the north. Despite their defenses being breached, they strategically retreated south to Helm's Deep. There, they used the fortress's fortifications to their advantage against the advancing enemies. The Rohirrim fought bravely, but were forced back into the Hornburg and Glittering Caves as Isengard's forces breached their defenses. King Theoden, alongside his ally Aragorn, led a final charge, with Gimli and Eomer launching a second attack from the Glittering Caves. They managed to push the enemy back. The remaining Rohirrim found unexpected aid from the Huarns, forest creatures who cut off the enemy's retreat. Gandalf arrived with fresh warriors, bolstering their forces. Together, they destroyed the enemy armies. The Huarns and the Ents also captured Isengard, leaving no escape for the surviving Orcs and Uruk-hai. After this victory, a messenger from Gondor arrived bearing the Red Arrow, seeking Rohan's aid against Sauron's armies. King Theoden gathered his men and rode to the defense of Gondor at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. There he fought and killed a chieftain of the Haradrim. Unfortunately, Theoden was mortally wounded by the Witch King of Angmar, who sought to kill the King of Rohan. However, Theoden's niece, Eowyn, and the hobbit Merry stood bravely against the Witch King, ready to defend their king with their lives. Despite facing overwhelming odds, Merry wielded a barrow blade gifted by Tom Bombadil, crafted long ago to defeat the Witch King. With this enchanted blade, Merry stabbed the Witch King in the back of the knee, breaking the spell protecting him. This allowed Eowyn to deliver a fatal blow, slaying the dreaded enemy. Although King Theoden succumbed to his wounds, the forces of men emerged victorious in the battle. Eomer, now the ruler of Rohan, led his warriors alongside Gondor's forces to confront Sauron at the Black Gate. Their goal was to distract Sauron's armies, buying time for Frodo Baggins to destroy the One Ring at Mount Doom. With Sauron defeated and the ring destroyed, Rohan prospered once more under Eomer's rule. Eowyn married Faramir, son of Gondor's last steward, cementing ties between Rohan and Gondor. Under Aragorn, known as King Elisar, heir of Isildur and rightful king of Gondor and Arnor, their alliance grew stronger. Elisar and Eomer, steadfast allies, continued to fight side by side, ensuring the complete defeat of Sauron's remnants. So, what are your views on Saruman and his change of heart? After watching today's video, do you have any new opinions than you did coming into it? Well, share your opinion with us in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed watching our video today, we kindly ask for you to please give us a big thumbs up and make sure you share our video with all your friends and family and fellow fans of Middle-earth. Also, if you subscribe to our channel and press the notification bell, you will always be given the updates when we have our latest uploads for you, and you'll always stay updated on all the latest information. Thanks so much for taking a path with us today, and we'll look forward to catching up with you next time. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching, and always keep exploring.